Okay. Okay, so in this mimer about Sarah Imenu and the level that she reached, so we saw that she reached the level of simcha that comes as a result of bittul. That even though generally speaking simcha and bittul you would understand as being two quite opposite things, that joy, simcha, is a feeling that you're experiencing. Bittul is nullification, is nothingness, is where you're completely transparent, you're not even there. However, we learned that true simcha is an expression of bittul. Because what is bittul? Bittul is expressed in our character as anava, humility. And humility does not mean that you're a nothing. Humility means that all that you have, you recognize as a gift from above. All your talents and everything that you have to offer to the world, you recognize, you're aware of that, but you don't take credit for it. It's not about you. It's the gifts that you were given. Had somebody else been given your gifts, they may have done a better job than you with your gifts, so you have nothing to be arrogant about. And yet you recognize the goodness that you have. As the Rabbi said, that even the emptiest person is full of mitzvahs, is full of good deeds, and everyone has what to recognize in themselves that they have something to offer. And yet you're not arrogant as a result of that. When you have this mentality that nothing is yours, it's all been given to you, so then that will bring to simcha. Because you don't feel entitled, you don't feel deserving, and therefore disappointed that you're not getting enough respect, and you're not getting enough recognition, and you're not being treated well, you're not getting all the rewards that you deserve. You don't feel that way because you don't feel you deserve anything. Anything that you get, you see as a bonus, as a gift. And so therefore, you're in a state of joy, of simcha. And so because the simcha came as a result of humility, so therefore it will be a humble type of simcha. That's what we saw last time. So now we're going to go into Zayin on page Kuf Nun Aleph. V'zeu v'yu chayei Sarah. So this is the meaning of the pasuk. And the life of Sarah was, and it goes 100 years, and 20 years, and 7 years. Shnei chayei Sarah, the years of the life of Sarah. Now remember we had the question that the Zohar asked, what's the repetition here? The yu chayei Sarah, and the years of the life of Sarah was 100 years, 20 years, 7 years. The years of the life of Sarah. What's that repetition about? V'yu chayei Sarah hu ma shezochse l'chayin Elohim. When it says at the beginning of the pasuk, and this is the life of Sarah, it's referring to the fact that Sarah lived a higher supernal life, a life of higher attainment, of spiritual attainment. Umafarit bazeh, and the Torah specifies what does it mean that Sarah reached a higher spiritual attainment. It means, it says, Meya Shana, Ve'esrim Shana, Ve'sheva Shanim, that she lived 100 years, and 20 years, and 7 years. The wording here, 100 years, and 20 years, and 7 years, it's divided up into three categories, into hundreds, into tens, and into units, which is a strange way of talking. It doesn't just say 127, it says 100 years, 20 years, 7 years. Why is it that? Shekoi al kol spheres. It's because she was able to reach the level where she connected to all the spheres. She activated all the 10 spheres in her neshama. How do you see that in 100 years and 20 years and 7 years? So Chassidus explains that 100 years is Keser, 20 years is Chachma and Bina, and 7 years is the Midas and Malchus, the Zohar Malchus, Chesed down to Malchus. And the Rebbe will explain that Keser is in hundreds, because it's a higher level, so it's the 1 of 100 instead of just 1, it's 100. Chachma and Bina are tens, it's a world below Keser, so it's 20 rather than just 2. And then the Midas are 7. So 127, the 127 years, 100 years, 20 years, and 7 years that Sarah lived means that the 10 spheres she was able to activate in her neshama. She was able to reach all the levels and bring them alive. The Rebbe explains it a bit more. As explained in the Rebbe Shab's Maimer, that 100 years is referring to the level of arich, which is the outer level of Keser, as the inner level of Keser Atik shines in it. Therefore it says 100 year. Literally in Hebrew it says Me'ah Shana, 100 year, not 100 years in plural. Because even though it's two levels of Keser, it's the way the Pnimis of Keser is shining in the Chitzonius of Keser. So it's a singular thing. 100 year. And it's higher than oneness. It's singularity, where two levels have become one. The Atik and Arich have become one. You're not expected to understand what is going on at the moment. This is Kabbalistic terminology. We'll go through it and then we'll see if we can decipher it. So 100 is Keser, more specifically Atik as it shines in Arich. Ve'esrim shanahu b'chinas Chachma Bina. 20 years is Chachma and Bina. V'sheva shanim hu b'chinas Zayin Midas. And the 7 years are the 7 emotions, Shiva Simei HaBinyan, the 7 days of creation, which correspond to Chesed down to Malchus. So, what this means in a general sense is that every single individual sphera of Sarah's neshama, she was able to connect with, to elevate, to shine, to ignite, from Keser all the way down to Malchus, which means she reached a very high level. That's what it means. In the Zohar it says Shazach l'chayin Elohim, that she lived a higher life. She was living on a very soulful level. That was how she lived. Then va'achkach mosif shnei chaye Sarah. But then at the end of the verse it says the years of the life of Sarah, seemingly repetitive. On this the Zohar says Dilah havachayim, that her life was hers. Not only did she live a supernal life where all 10 spheres were activated, but her life was hers, was really hers. Shechayin hen dilah gam b'murgesh, which means that she lived her life on this very spiritual plane where the 10 spheres were shining in her, but she lived it b'murgesh in a way that she actually felt it and experienced her life. Meaning that even though she was on such a high level, you would think that she would be totally swallowed up by Elokus. She was totally present. She was totally with it. She would experienced her life. She lived her life. She was normal. Even though she was so high, she was totally normal, totally with it, totally present. Which in Avodah, what that means is that the bittul expressed itself in her simcha, even when her simcha was revealed simcha. There's a simcha that's not felt, that you're in a state of total bittul, you don't even feel the simcha. Then there's a simcha that is felt, that you feel the joy. And then there's higher than that, a simcha that you feel it, and yet it's with bittul. That you're experiencing the simcha, but it's not a self-experience. And this was the level that Sarah reached, which is the highest that you could possibly be. It's one thing to be batal and to be a zombie. To be in a state of bittul, but you have no personality, or no presence, or no clue what's going on, so then that's bittul, but that's bittul that's beyond you. To have bittul, but to be totally present, to be able to experience it, to be normal, that's a much higher level. That's what Sarah reached. That even when her joy was b'murga, she felt her joy, but it still was with bittul, it wasn't about her. As we mentioned earlier from the Rebbe Shab's Maimer, that she had simcha b'bizgalus, a revealed simcha, and yet it was with bittul. That's why when the Torah says at the end of the pasuk, the years of the life of Sarah, it doesn't repeat the numbers 127. Because the fact that even when she feels her joy, she's nevertheless in a state of simcha, of bittul, which is the bringing together of two opposites, feeling and bittul. It's a level that's higher than any division. Right? First, when the pasuk says that she was 127 years, what it means is that on every single level of her soul, she was alive. But when you're talking about levels, that's a world of division. The pasuk then says, Shnei Chayei Sarah, that she reached an even higher level than that, a level where her life was hers, where she could feel joy without feeling herself, in a total state of bittul. She could totally experience it and totally not be about her, which is bringing two opposites together, which is higher than Ischalkus, higher than any division. So therefore, it doesn't say 127 in that part of the pasuk. It says in the earlier part of the pasuk. What the Rabbi is saying is that there were two madregas that Sarah reached. One was that every part of her soul was activated. The other was that beyond the parts of her soul, she reached a level that is beyond division, beyond limitation, where you can feel joy and not feel yourself. Two opposites at once. And that's the advantage of the last part of the pasuk, the years of the life of Sarah, over the beginning of the pasuk. The life of Sarah was 127 years. That the pasuk here is telling us two distinct things about Sarah. When you hear that Sarah reached 100 years, 20 years and 7 years, which means that all the levels of her soul were activated, were shining, it's a very high level to reach, which you could even understand from Rashi's explanation of the pasuk, that when she was 100 years, she was as beautiful as innocent as when she was 20 years, and when she was 20, she was as beautiful as when she was 7. That means, on a spiritual level, that she reached very high. We're not just talking about her beauty; we're talking about her inner beauty, her inner innocence that she maintained her entire life. So, indeed, it's talking about a very high level of avodah that she reached. But nevertheless, it's still three different things. 100 years, 20 years, 7 years. Keser, Chachma Bina, Zohar Malchus. It's three different categories of avodah, three levels. But when it says this is the life of Sarah, the years of the life of Sarah, that they're all equal. Above any division. And so from this level that's above Ischalkus, even that which is felt is in a state of bittul. Dilah Havachayim, her life is hers. Okay. Let's try and understand a little bit what we just read. Let's try and make sense of it. What the Rabbi here is saying is that there's two distinct praises that we have about Sarah. One is about the specifics of her avodah, and the other one is about a deeper level she reached that is beyond division. A way to understand this is, we know that at Matan Torah, at the beginning of the Torah, it says Hayroinus Akolos, that the Jewish people saw the voices. They saw the voices, the voice of Hashem. And on that the Gemara says Hayroinus Anishma V'Shem and Samira, that they would see that which is usually heard and hear that which is usually seen. Why? Why is that a good thing? Why is that advantageous? What does it mean to see the voices? What type of experience is that? Why was this an important thing to know, that the Jewish people saw the voices? Because what it means is that usually we have various different functions. We have different senses. We have sight, we have sound, different ways of experiencing the reality around us. Having good eyesight means that you see things clearly. If your hearing is good, that means you don't miss what's going on, you hear it very well, and that is good. Would somebody say that my eyesight's not good because I don't see the voices? Or my hearing, I'm having trouble with my hearing because I can't hear the sights? Of course not. That's not the function of hearing or the function of seeing. Good seeing is seeing that which is visible. Good hearing means hearing that which is audible. The fact that the Jewish people heard what is seen and saw what is heard, why is that an advantage? Why is that good? What it's saying is that not only were the visions amazing and the sounds amazing, the Jewish people reached a level beyond the divisions of sight and sound. A super sensory experience where you can see something that is usually heard, you can hear something that is usually seen, because you're experiencing it above the limitations of the senses. So therefore, you don't, the boundaries of vision are not there anymore. You can hear that which is seen. The boundaries of hearing are not there. You can hear, you can see that which is heard. And so what it's describing there at Matan Torah is that the Jewish people reached a level in their neshama that is above the usual division of functions, where it's all one. They reached a level of oneness. Seeing, hearing, it's all the same. Just like the Jewish people, generally speaking, are divided into individuals, but at Matan Torah it was ki ish echad lev echad, like one person with one soul, with one heart. They were totally united. They transcended their divisions and became one. They reached this oneness. So individually they experienced, instead of the divisions of various faculties, they experienced oneness, where you could see that which is heard, hear that which is seen. It's all the same thing. A point in the soul where it's all united, transcending division. So a similar thing we're saying here about Sarah. That first we said about Sarah that she reached completeness in all her levels. In all the 10 spheres of her soul, they reached their completeness. The 100, the 20, the 7 means that in Keser, in Chachma, in Bina, in Zah and Malchus, all of the spheres of her soul were complete, were on the highest level. She lived a supernal life. But then, the Torah says, but even bigger than that, she managed to transcend the divisions of the 10 spheres and reach a level of unity, of oneness, where she connected to that point in the soul that is beyond the divisions of the 10 spheres. How do we see this? Dilo havechayin, that her life was hers. Meaning that her life was bittul, was total dedication to Hashem, but she did that with joy. She was joyous, she experienced her joy, but not in a selfish way, in a bittul way. Which is two opposites. To be able to be joyous and be in a state of bittul are two opposites. Bittul is non-self, non-feeling, not about me. Simcha is a joy, an experience. To experience joy in a way of bittul is bringing the two opposites together. That you can only do if you're on a level that is beyond the divisions, the normal divisions. It's like seeing that which is heard, or hearing that which is seen. It's only when you transcend the divisions you can reach such a level, have such an experience. And that's what Sarah did. She was completely present. She experienced joy. The joy was revealed, and yet it was not selfish. It was with bittul. And that's the meaning of what the Zohar says, two praises of Sarah based on the two phrases in the Pasuk, V'yu chaya Sarah and Shnei chaya Sarah. What are that? The first one means that she lived Chaim Eloin, she lived on a higher plane of life, where all 10 spheres were ignited, all of her personality was on its highest possible level. But then, Dilah Havechaim, her life was hers, meaning that she was above it. She was above the limitation of those 10 spheres. She was able to have joy in a way of bittul. Two opposites together. Does it make any sense?
Yeah. It just seems very abstract. Is there any thing that we can identify a bit more? Like any example that...
Is that the reason that she felt bitter when she got the news that she's going to have a child? So she didn't feel that she's really worthy of having a child at that age?
I don't know. I don't know if we can count that. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know. How to bring it down more? Well, let's look in the next paragraph where the Rebbe says how we have to emulate this, and maybe it'll come down a bit more to us, because we said earlier in the Maimer that Ma'aseh Avasim Labanim, that everything that the forefathers did was a precursor for the children, for the future generations, which the Rebbe says what that really means is that any madrega that the forefathers reached, we can and must reach as well. We also have to experience it. And that's not just the forefathers, but it's the mothers as well. And particularly the mothers, because they're the mothers, and particularly Sarah, because she's the first. So therefore, anything that she experienced is for us. Is for us to do, to emulate.
So we say that the simcha that she reached last week we said the simcha that Sarah which we can never reach until Mashiach comes. Yitzchak, no, sorry. Until Mashiach comes, we can never reach it.
We said last week that it only complete the complete level of that will only come, but Mashiach doesn't come without us doing it, without us making it happen.
Yeah.
So we have to get that. Look at the next paragraph. Bottom of Kuf Nun. V'yesh loimer. So we could say that through the idea of Dilah Havachayim, that the life was hers, she lived it in a state of bittul, living that in avodah, shegam hamurgish simcha shebizgalus huba bittul, which means that even your felt experiences, a revealed joy, even that is infused with bittul, with self-nullification. Kipirish Bal Yom Aledes Didah Havachayim, which is how the Rebbe Rashab explained the Zohar's description of Sarah Didah Havachayim, that her life was hers, that she lived a life of simcha, but that simcha was with bittul. Alidei Zenasid Dilah Havachayim Gam Bepashtus. So what that translates into is the simple and literal translation Dilah Havachayim, Shachayim Hen Shalah, which is her life was hers. V'naisas balabas alachayim, that she became master over her life. Her life was hers. What does that mean? It means living, being more alive. That you can be alive, sort of, but the life is not really yours. You're not really living your life. Or you can be really alive, where life is yours. You're master over it. You're in it. You're totally it. Here as well, this is a very elusive concept, but it's something that I guess we can all relate to on some level. That you can be alive, meaning you have a pulse, your heart is beating, but you're not really alive. Like, your life is not yours. You're being schlepped around here and there and everywhere. You're going along with things, you're going through the motions, but you're not really present, not really in it. Not fully alive. So then you've got a life, but your life is not yours. You're not one with your life. You're not really living it. It's almost like you're a spectator in your own life, watching it go by. You know, sometimes we can feel that days, weeks go by, and we're doing the things that we're supposed to be doing, like we're moving, it's happening, but like, what just happened? Where did that go? Where did that year go? 10 years ago. Like, what did I do with my life? We're not talking about achievement, or we're not talking about that. We're talking about being present. living, being alive. That's didah havachayim, that you're actually alive. And this is very much tied up with simcha, with living life with joy means living life with presence. That if you're not doing it with joy, so you're not really in it. And so you can still be, you're a good mother, a good wife, a good daughter, a good friend, a good all that, but it's not with any enthusiasm, not any joy. So your life is not yours. It's passing you by. You're an extra in it. You're like in the background, in your own life.
It's interesting because if you look at Sarah and Abraham, you hear so much more about Abraham. He seems to be much more of the initiator of everything, and Sarah seems to be more in the shadow. But you're saying
that's Malchus. That's exactly what Malchus is.
Mm.
It's not about being in the limelight.
It's about yeah. She doesn't seem as in control of everything, but I guess that's not what it's about.
She's totally in control of everything. In Sarah is like she's the one who calls all the shots. Everyone just follows. But anyway, that's not the thing here. Is talking about in her life, her presence. She's present. So that's dilah havachayim. Her life was hers, meaning she's balabas over life. She's living it. She's the one actively living life. It's not happening to her. It doesn't mean whether she's passive or active in her interactions. It means in her life, she's in it. She's it. And so living life in that way leads to the literal sense of living life fully, being alive. So the Rabbi explains why. Ki simcha peretz kol hagdarim. Because there's a principle that says that simcha, joy, breaks through all boundaries. Simcha peretz geder, breaks down walls. Joy breaks down walls. That this is something that the Rabbi Rabbi explains at length in a Maimer, Samech to Samach. That when you're in a state of joy, limitations fall down. You'll speak to people who you'd usually be too shy to speak to when you're in a joyous mood. You'll say things that you never would have usually said. Share information that you usually keep to yourself. Forgive somebody who you're angry at and you wouldn't have forgiven them otherwise. Befriend somebody who's not really the type you'd be friends with. When you're in a state of joy, fences, walls fall down, and you have this broadness that wouldn't be there otherwise. When we don't have simcha, we're boxed and limited and held back. But when in a state of simcha, of joy, the walls fall down. Simcha peretz geder. Joy pulls down kol hagdarim, all the walls. So therefore, v'lachein al yidei hasimcha bis galus u'b'chinas bittul nasa tagboros hachayim l'mayla megeder ha'agbala. Therefore, when you live in a way of joy, in a joyous way, and in joy that is revealed, and that joy is in a state of bittul, not an egotistical joy, but a humble joy, what that does is that it creates what's called tagboros hachayim, which means an intensity of life, which is above the normal limitations. In other words, there's living life in the normal, limited, confined way, and then there's living life with a level of intensity that is beyond the limitations. There's being alive, getting by, and then there's being alive to the full, to the maximum, without limitation. When you are in a state of simcha, of joy, you draw down a higher liveliness, a higher intensity of life, tagboros hachayim, an overflow of life. Because simcha pulls down limitations, so you're not just living in a limited, narrow way anymore. Simcha pulls away the barriers and brings down more intense life. you're more alive. It's like the life force from Hashem is not going to be so much of a tzimtzum for you, because you're living with simcha, which breaks down borders. So therefore the borders, the tzimtzum, the contraction, the limitation of life that comes down to you will fall away, and you get intense life, deeper life. Tagboiras Echayim, it's a very fascinating concept. Intensity of life.
So when we say simcha parts together, I mean, the meaning that I would usually associate with that is, in terms of wanting to negate a bad situation through joy. But the meaning that you are giving it, well, it's not different exactly. You're just expanding on it, I think, because if you're trying to negate a bad situation with joy, if the joy is going to bring down this tagberes hachayim, this greater vitality, well, greater vitality and intensity of life and blessing and all that entails doesn't leave any room for a bad situation. A bad situation falls away.
Correct. Yeah. So it's like you break down your barriers through simcha, and then Hashem responds breaking down barriers and limitations, and there's a more direct, a more intense flow of life.
So are we saying that when you live your life without those limitations, that's the intensity of life, or that there's something like there's a flow of intensity that's coming down? I understand that one might mirror the other, but when we're using that expression, are we saying that as like in your life, or
You've opened up your kelim, but through simcha, you've opened up your kelim. You're not boxed in. Your gedarim have opened, so therefore you are able to handle more liveliness, more life force.
Maybe it's like opening a tap. It's not that more water is pushing on the tap suddenly. It's just that you've opened it wider, so more can come through.
But you've also got a bigger cavity.
Well,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's pouring out of a tap into a tiny something. You can't contain it.
Right. Simcha is what opens up your limitations, so that you can handle more intensity of life in a positive way. Not intensity doesn't mean intense like issues.
But
It means
when you're happy, you're living life on a more intense level, right? You're much more
positive
alive.
intensity.
yeah, magnified.
But you're saying even more than that, Hashem then also gives you more intensity. So you're living, that's already an intensity, and then on top of that, there's like this flow that gives you more intensity.
Yeah. And that's called tagboris achayim. Tagboris is a fascinating word. We're going to analyze it in a minute. Tagboris means an intensity of life, an overflow of life. Which is L'mayla Megillah Agbaleh. Now you're going to be blown away by the next connection. This is known in Chassidus about what Yitzchak represents. What's Yitzchak? Yitzchak is Shinyonihu Tzchok v'Simcha. Yitzchak we know is from laughter. He will laugh. Tzchok and Simcha. Next page. Got enough for everybody. So, what does it mean? Why is Yitzchak laughter? In the spheres, what is Yitzchak? Gvura. So how is Yitzchak laughter and Gvura?
It's the opposite.
What is Gvura? Restraint.
Holding in.
Holding in. What is laughter?
Letting out.
Simcha is paired together.
Overflowing.
So listen to this, top of the page. Gvuras de Yitzchak, the Gvuras of Yitzchak, who inyan tagboris achayis, is the intensity of life. But tagboris abrachas, an intensity of blessings, an overflow of blessing, an overflow of life.
Is Tagboris from Gavur?
Yes. Tagboris.
You would say about a Gurdic person that they're intense, someone has
But
a really
that's the opposite
severe,
way.
intense personality.
But it's not.
But it's the
the
opposite.
intense are different.
Joy.
Yeah, it's the opposite way.
Right. So, what it says in Chassidus is that the shorish of Gevura is Tagboris, Hashefa. That the real source of Gevura is intensity of giving, an intensity of expression, an overwhelmingness of expression that is so intense that it leaves a lack. It's so much, it's too much, so therefore there's a lack. That there's chesed, which is giving, then there's gevura, which comes from over-giving, too much intensity, and so therefore it has to be held back. That's tagboris hashefa. The example that's given in Chassidus of this is that we know that sweetness is a chesed thing. Like the example often given is that the sweetness of an apple is chesed. That the midas of chesed in its spiritual form, after many levels of ishtalshelus, it evolves into the physical form of sweetness in an apple. And so the fact that an apple is sweet is because it's got an expression of chesed in it that is in a gashmistika form. That's the sweetness of an apple. But the sweetness of honey is from gevura. Because that's intense sweetness. It's extreme sweetness. That an apple you can eat and enjoy an apple. It's sweet. It's not all that sweet. It's handling. You can handle the sweetness, but you cannot eat the same size of you eat an apple of honey. You can't eat a whole big dollop of honey. That would be too intense. Why? If you like sweet, so why don't you like very sweet very much? Because that's too much sweetness. That's intense sweetness, and for that you need to have a little drop.
You might get beaten up too by the
Yeah, that's worse. So there's chesed, sweetness, and then there's intense sweetness, which comes from gevura.
And that has to be held back.